What's going on? Welcome back to the Search Economy. Like I mentioned at the top, we are diving into a new series here where we are going to be going through SCORE, which is how we communicate to our clients about SEO and their position in the search economy. And today we're going to be talking about the S of that, which is strategy, the 5 strategies we use to help our clients win in the search economy. But David, I know you're excited about this. You were kind of getting organized before this conversation. I think this is a good idea. Share a little bit more, peek behind the curtain of how we've come up with some of this methodology. But welcome back, man. How are you?
I am good. Excited to jump on. Yeah, can't wait to tell everybody about how I dreamed of SCORE one day. But yeah, I am excited to chat. Let's dive in.
Okay, so I guess from the top, SCORE. How did this came to be? What was the reason why this methodology got put in place?
I'll throw you on the spot. Maybe you could act like our customer for a second. But I think you in a different world could have been our customer, right? Is SEO confusing to the
Yes,
to the layman?
yeah,
Super confusing, right?
yes.
It You don't know what it includes, but I also think if I say SEO, you're like, that guy's probably a technical nerd. There's some code involved, like there's some like wizardry that they do behind the scenes, and like, yeah, it ends up in rankings, and I'll be happy about it. But I'm never going to ask a question because the last thing I want to do is have a conversation about SEO. How did Score get born? I think the biggest reason why Score got born is SEO is confusing. People have a visceral reaction to SEO. I say I do SEO to friends or even my own mother, and she's like, "Oh, what is that's complicated, right?" Like, it's sure there's some complicated nature into it. We can get into all that, but I wanted to give somebody a way to easily understand what SEO is. I wanted to give it an acronym. I wanted to give it a name, right? We remember things more aptly with names, but this is something that can stick with you. It's an easy thing to remember. And ultimately, in a weird way, I wanted to humanize SEO, right? Like, again, when people think of SEO, it's this technical thing that's really confusing, really hard to do. But if you think of Score, well, Score is kind of fun, and we'll dive into it, right? But like easier to remember. It's more businessy. It's not just SEO language about backlinks and off page and not like it's relatable. It's approachable. It's easy to understand. But I think the biggest thing is once you hear it, you're like, oh, these are the levers I need to use. And I think the biggest thing as well, there's a lot of noise about what is best for SEO. Do links, do content, do strategy, do manage the technical side of your site. Like you can go on and on. There's a lot of people that argue about their tactics. And I think the biggest thing that Score does is it puts an emphasis on tactics, but it also puts an emphasis on holistic strategy. Tactics alone do not do anything. If you just build links, you're not going to get very far. I always use it like an analogy with a car. You need 4 tires, you need an engine, you need a transmission, a steering wheel, and some other things. You can't drive the car without all of those things. Same way with SEO. You can't find success without all things of Score. So obviously we'll dive more into it, but I think it plays a couple roles of humanizing it, making SEO more relatable, but giving people something to remember, right? It doesn't scare them off. It actually gets you excited about what's to come.
Want to dig in a little bit further on the creation side and the moment in time. Where were you at in this journey with Pneuma and building a customer base when you reached the point where you're like, "Yeah, what we're doing is kind of working, but if we give a name to it and start to position it a certain way, it might resonate more and it might help us get more customers." Like, when did that moment happen?
It's, I think in many ways we were probably doing Score for years before we ever named it. We were doing our version of SEO, but our version of SEO was finding what works and really reevaluating every month what parts of SEO do we need to be successful? Do we need links? Do we need content? Right? And I started to realize and listening to customers as well, what we were doing was unique, but what we were doing wasn't so like templatized or quoted, right? Like it wasn't you can only do this and that, and you couldn't do anything more, anything less. Our process gave some variability and flexibility to things. When we had variability and flexibility, we actually had better results. And in an agency world, it can be pretty cutthroat, right? There are a lot of agencies that do what we do. Finding a unique thing that stands out in the market like Score, I think was an obvious next step for us as we were starting to get bigger and go into larger accounts, right? if someone's looking for an SEO agency and let's say they had 5 that they're vetting and 4 of them do SEO and we have Score, our unique process to get you to the first page, it's at least going to make you raise an eyebrow and say, okay, they must have thought through this a little bit more than the competitors. Let's go chat with them. So I think it was a natural evolution for us to stand out, but it was also a natural evolution of we've been doing this thing for a long time. Now we can name it and put into more of a system or process that not only helps us market, but it helps us stand out as well.
So let's talk about Google ranking factors. I think it's important to maybe hit those before we get in. Hit why that's important to Score before we get into Score specifics. So, what can you touch on just with Google ranking factors and their importance?
There's a lot of noise around, I would say, what Google wants to rank for and what's important. The 4 that we always see are quality content, making sure the content on your site is not only relevant, it's original. There's a good content link to it, and there are good elements to the content, right? Maybe you have some infographics, maybe you have some images, maybe you have some different lists. It's just a good, fun piece of readable content, and I get smarter by reading it. The second one is backlinks. Backlinks can also get technical, but the way I typically say it are recommendations or referrals, right? As a business, if let's say, Brett, you work at a different business and you refer me a lead, not only is the lead coming in warm, but you are the recommender to Pneuma, right? If you carry some weight, that means that weight's going to kind of be transferred over to us. If someone trusts you, they naturally are going to trust us a little bit more. I think a backlink's the same way. If other sites are talking positively about Pneuma, well, then their credibility is going to get passed over to us as well and give us a little bit more, I'd say, authority in the eyes of Google, which is a good thing. So that's backlinks. User experience. I'm a car guy. I think I've made that known between talking IndyCar and all sorts of other fun things. But the user experience has to be good. There's no point in driving a really fast car if, when you sit inside, the steering wheel's upside down or backwards or like it's all weird to you. It might look good on the outside, but it doesn't look good on the inside. I think that's one thing that Google looks at is just even if you have good content and good backlinks, when somebody comes to your site, it has to be a pleasurable experience. It has to be a site that people actually want to stick around on and stay. And the fourth thing they actually measure that with is more so user signals. I would say this accumulates a bunch of different signals that Google looks at to give a score to your site, quote unquote, a score. Understanding, your direct traffic, your branded traffic, how much time people spend on the site, how many pages they click to, how quickly do they bounce off, where are they going on their site, are they taking some type of conversion on your site, whether filling out a form or not. Those are all good things to keep in mind as well. I'd say you can get technical and really dive into content, backlinks, user experience, and user signals. I think the important part to remember is that Google wants to send traffic to a site that's good for the consumer. It makes them smarter. It helps them reach their desired outcome quicker. But it's something that people are going to look back with a positive experience throughout their day and be like, yeah, that was great. I enjoyed going to that site. And I often say more times than not, it wasn't a negative experience. I don't visit a site and be like, that was an awesome experience. I just move on with my day. But if I visit a site that was a negative experience, oh, it was negative. I'm like, I will never go back to that site again. So people always make fun of me, like, no one's ever going to visit my site and be like, that was the best part of my day. You're exactly right. Just make sure they don't say the opposite. Don't build a site where somebody comes and they're like, that was terrible. I'm just not going back, because that gets said 9 times out of 10 if it's a bad experience.
So, with Google rankings factors in mind, why do you believe that Score is better than anything else that's currently on the market?
It does everything that works and nothing that doesn't. Um, I picked this up from Jim on our team, but SEO can be very complicated or it can be very simple. Um, I also say this about dieting. Health can be very complicated or it can be very simple. Eat less calories than the calories you burn, right? Like there are always ways to make a complicated topic complicated, but there's also ways to make a complicated topic more simple. Score takes into effect or really takes into account the ranking factors that Google has, and it doesn't hypothesize on maybe what works or what doesn't. We're doing what the rules say, and we're only moving those levers. I'm not going to ask you to sign up for a retainer with us and pitch you a half-baked idea that isn't going to work. We are using the tools at our disposal that we know are going to move the needle for you, and that's the most important thing, right? We're not going to experiment with your budget or your time or your website. We're looking at the ranking factors that Google say if you do a good job of, you will rank higher. And we're working that into our strategy. We're trying to improve your content, your links, your UX, and your user signals on the site. Those are the levers that if Google's looking at, we want to make sure we're improving as well.
Do How much of a process is, I guess, on your side or Numa's side with understanding all of the dynamic changes that Google is constantly going through and making? And I mean, there's changes, updates all the time that impact web rankings. What's the process look like to make sure that we're aware of those things, one, and then two, those things are being that information is being transferred to the strategy of the clients that we serve?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is Google gives you a good insight into what they're updating. And if you follow along close enough, Google's going to tell you what they're doing. I think it's cutting through the noise, right? It's knowing what's a verified piece of information and what's a hypothesis. But I'd give kudos to everybody on our team. They keep a pretty close eye on any changes. They're looking at SERP volatility. They're looking at what SEMrush is publishing. They're looking at what Google's publishing. They're really diving into what is happening in the market and what is happening to their websites and making good decisions based off of that. So there's not a sexy way to say it, but it's just keeping up on the information. It's being a true person of SEO and like a true follower of SEO or Google Ads and really just seeing what's going on in the market, what's happening to their sites and putting the two pieces together.
All right, we're gonna hit on the S in score to kick things off, which is strategy for anyone playing at home. I've been a part of this where it's like, let's do SEO, but there's no strategy in place, and it goes off the rails pretty quickly, and it's hard to get back on. What I guess Why is that the first? Why is strategy number one? And what happens when you don't start with strategy? Like, what are some of the bad things that can come from SEO?
Yeah, if I just pulled up to your house here in 30 minutes and I was like, all right, Brett, we're going on a road trip, jump in the car. What's your next question? It's probably, where are we going? I'm not telling you, Brett. Just jump in the car, right? You'd be like, I like this guy. He's my boss. I don't know if I'm going to get in the car with him. I jokingly use that analogy because I think a lot of times an SEO vendor rolls up in front of your company and they're like, hey, company, get in the car. And you're like, awesome, can't wait. And then you just get in the car and you all start driving and nobody asks where you're going to go. 9 times out of 10, you are going to end up in the wrong spot. You just are, right? Or the expectation is going to be misaligned. You thought we were going to Bloomington. I thought we were going to, I don't know, Crawfordsville. Two very different spots. Um, we drove, we got there safe. Still not where you wanted to be. The expectations off, right? Or you thought it was an hour-long road trip. I thought it was a 1 day road trip, and you're like, I don't know about that. I jokingly use that analogy because, again, in real life, you'd never get in the car. You'd start asking questions. But when an SEO vendor rolls up in front of your company, a lot of times companies don't ask questions. It's like, okay, if it works, it works. Let's do it. And then they're hands off. They give it to the SEO agency, and they're like, okay, why isn't it working? That's fault on the company, but also fault on the SEO vendor agency, right? S is all about aligning that. It's all about aligning the road trip, let's say, right? If I'm going to take an airplane ride from Indianapolis to Denver, it's aligning on when I show up to the airport. It's aligning on what plane I'm flying, what the seat is, maybe what my in-flight meal is, how long the flight's going to take, how expensive it is. When I land, what happens? Where do I go after? It's really just aligning the expectations with the client, but also pointing the campaign in the right direction. One thing that I have noticed with Google, and I think it really comes down to user signals and user experience, they want a site that creates a good positive experience. And how you do that is think strategically about what you want to happen on the site. So we bring 5 strategies to the table anytime we work with clients. I'm sure we'll dive into them, so I won't maybe spoil the prize, but um, I'd say we pull them, and I'm going to put it in quotes if you're watching, but off the shelf, we pull 5 starter strategies and we customize them quite a bit to each client. But we're pulling these things out because they're 5 directional strategies we can take for a client that helps us point our efforts, make sure we're all in line, but we share the same flight plan, so to speak, as we move forward. That way, our expectations are aligned and our understanding of when results happen are also aligned.
So let's dig into those five strategies. The first one I want to talk about is the quick win strategy. How would you describe the quick win strategy, and who is it a best fit for?
Yeah, I like this one, and it's easiest to explain because it's right there in the name. Um, let's say you have abc.com and you sell widgets for whatever easy purpose this is. Quick wins is all about plugging that site into SEMrush and finding all the keywords that you rank for on page 2, 3, and 4. The reason we like doing that is because there's already some effort made to get those on the first page. They're already ranking. There's already a piece of content indexed. Google's clearly saying it's not half bad because it's on the second, third, or fourth page. All we need to do is get to the first page. I equate this to starting a marathon at the 24th mile. Yes, it's a lot easier than doing the full 26. Now, there might be benefits to the full 26, or you might have to do the full 26. That's okay. But if you're at the finish line and you just need us to carry that over and find some quick wins for you, here's the funny thing. The person that starts at mile 24 and the person that starts at mile 0, neither of them have a medal. Neither of them have finished the marathon. So that's the other part. Just because a keyword's on, page 2, 3, and 4 doesn't mean it's necessarily easier to get onto the first page. Sometimes it is, but it's closer and sometimes it can be quicker. And if it's quicker, you get your results quicker as well. So I think that's the thing that I always explain to clients is that if a keyword's on page 10, page 2, it's still doing the same amount for you, which is nothing. So if we can start with the ones closer to the finish line and work our way backwards, that's typically pretty good. So like I said, it sounds what it's like. We find keywords on pages 2, 3, and 4, and we quickly move them to the first page. It's like starting a marathon at mile 24. You get your medal quicker, you get the results quicker, and who doesn't like quicker results? Doesn't mean they happen overnight. They certainly don't, but they can happen far quicker compared to trying to take a keyword from unranked all the way to the first page.
If you listen to the episode with Crystal Carter, the next one she talked about a lot, and that's competitor strategy. Competitor strategy, who's a good fit for? How does it look?
I see this being used a lot for B2B companies, especially some home services companies. We'll cover them with a few other strategies, but sometimes there are sites that have been around forever. There are companies that have been around forever. You Google your company name or you Google a keyword relevant to your business and you're like, they're ahead of us again. And it's whoever it may be, right? Like if I'm ABC, maybe it's xyz.com. And you're like, I am so sick of seeing them in front of us. Competitor strategy is all about having a hyper focus on what the competitors have done to get there, a reverse engineer, and add a little bit more flair to it to get in front of them. We look essentially at your competitors and just reverse engineer what has made them successful on the first page. This is really good for B2B, but I think in any campaign we do typically look at competitors just to see what they're doing. But the fun thing about this, it's a question I always get. Well, what if my competitor's been around for 100 years? Great. That's 100 years worth of data that we can look at and figure out what they've done and try and recreate it as quickly as possible. Google wants a good experience. Let's go all the way back to user signals and user experience. Notice one of the ranking factors wasn't how long the site's been around. I truly don't think it matters all that much anymore. Maybe 5 years ago, the conversation would have been different, but I think that's changed quite a bit. We have outranked Facebook for keywords that Facebook ranks for on the first page. Doesn't mean you should be ranking Facebook for everything, but Facebook's been around a while, huge company. They have all sorts of organic results. And a startup site knocked them right off the first page. I always use that example to say it doesn't matter how big the competition is. What matters is, can we reverse engineer it? And a lot of times, what I see, a lot of people look at that market and they're like, so and so is way ahead of us. They've been around forever. I'm not going to touch it. They might not even be doing good SEO. Someone has to rank on the first page. Void of a better result, Google's going to put whatever they can find in the first position. And 9 times out of 10, the competition is not actually doing a great job. And you can swoop in and have very strategic SEO that passes them right by. So, again, competitors all about finding people that are on the first page, whether people you hate to see in front of you, sites that have been there for a long time, and just reverse engineering what they've done to make it to the first page and put that on your site.
The next one, maybe you were alluding to with home services, I would imagine fits into this bucket, but local strategy, who's it a best fit for?
I think it's great for anything that has a localized service area. So typically home services is a good example. Roofing, attic installation, plumbing, right? If I am in Denver and I need somebody to come fix my hot water heater, which I had done earlier this week. You and I have hot water
Yeah,
heater issues, I guess,
not
man. I
not
don't
fun, not
Not
fun.
fun at all. I had cold showers. They say it's a health benefit. I did not feel healthier yesterday, but um it's anything that has a localized service area. The goal here is to tackle geographical searches. So not just plumbers, right? You don't need to rank for plumbers. you need to rank for plumbers in Denver or Denver plumbers or Colorado Springs plumbers or right? Anything that shows a tendency that you need someone close by. Plumbers in Denver cannot service a home in California. I guess they could, but it would require some driving, and I don't think they do it. So local strategy is really all about using the map pack on Google. So whenever you Google like plumber near me, you're going to see a map little image pop up, and then you're also going to see the rest of the Google SERP pop up. It's about optimizing your company for both of those things and making sure that you appear in all ways that people search in a local area to really get the most bang for your buck. I think we've talked about this with a search economy as well. Local is a perfect example of optimizing for the way that your customers buy and search. We don't need to optimize nationally for plumbers. They People nationally are not searching for plumbers in Denver. People in Denver are searching for plumbers in Denver. So using the map pack, using your Google My Business, and using your website to really rank for those terms is a great resource and a great strategy to pull.
Number four is full funnel strategy. What does this mean?
Full funnel is great for companies that truly need SEO done in all parts of the funnel. They need some very high top of funnel authority and awareness. They need some middle of funnel authority and awareness, and they need some bottom of funnel keywords that help convert as well. Um, these campaigns don't always convert as well as the other campaigns because they're not as focused towards the bottom of the funnel, but they can definitely create awareness. And if you're looking to not only build awareness about your company, build a following, but you have a longer term mindset. You can wait a little while for results and you can put people in the top of funnel knowing that they'll come down to the bottom of funnel. This is a great resource for that. I like using this for a lot of companies that have maybe a longer sales cycle that we just can't jump in and do bottom of funnel keywords for you immediately and see immediate results. Maybe your sales cycle is 18 months. We're going to try and catch people that are 18 months away from a decision, all the way down to catching people that are 1 month away from a decision, and really try and guide them through that full funnel approach. I think the other thing here as well is it helps a website create topical authority. If you write content in all different parts of the funnel, Google's going to look at your site and saying, okay, that like they get it. They're an expert on it. Not only did they write one blog on plumbing, they wrote hundreds of blogs on plumbing. They've addressed the topic in so many different ways. They must know their stuff. We're going to send traffic to that website. So it's also another good signal to Google as well as we think of ranking factors and quality content. Topical authority is a key part of quality content.
The last strategy that is a part of the group is golden keywords, which I'd say is probably the coolest name. So, talk a little bit about golden keywords and who it's the best fit for.
Yeah, golden keywords is definitely the most resource intensive, but it's also the one that can pay the most dividends. It's for certain companies that only really need to rank for one keyword. Um, Trying to think of any good examples, but I think it can also be applied to a lot of the companies that we talked about. Let's say a company came to us and they rank for all the keywords except for plumbing in Denver. That's all they want to rank for. That keyword alone, we've mapped it out. We've seen what the competitors do. That could build such a great business for them off the back of one keyword. Instead of building topical authority, instead of going through the different strategies, we are going to put all of our resources towards ranking for one keyword because it's that valuable. So I think another way to think about this as well is that if there's a keyword in your industry or market that truly is that valuable, high search volume, very high buying intent, you can rank for that and see revenue quickly. Let's put all our resources behind that as well. And I think I love talking about this as the fifth as well because all the other ones talk about ranking for a lot of keywords. This is just one. We're going to pick one golden keyword out of the hat and rank for it. And it's just a really cool way to show how we can flex with our client as well. We're not going to force you into a template or a formula to work with us. We're going to actually find what makes the needle move for your business and build a strategy behind that. And golden keywords is truly a great example of us doing something unique because it really actually moves the needle for the client, not forcing them into a different strategy because it's easier. Again, this is the most resource intensive, and we still sell it and we still deliver it because it moves the needle for clients. And ultimately, that's what clients are paying us for at the end of the day. I would say this: think of the road trip analogy or think of the plane ride analogy. If you're thinking about SEO, think with the end in mind. What do you want to achieve? What are the searches that you want to come to your site? How quickly do you want to see results? Start thinking of what success looks like for SEO. Don't think about the tactics. Think about the finish line of the marathon. Even work from there, right? So if you say, all right, I'm a plumber, I just want localized searches. I want people close to the bottom of the funnel. I don't care about building top of funnel authority. My people don't need that. Like if their hot water heater is broken, they just want somebody to come service it. Great. Sounds like you need local. But maybe you say, we're a new piece of tech. I need people to come top of funnel. I need people to know who we are. I need to build a name and a brand for myself so competitors can see us in the market. But I also need to build some, consideration content in the middle, but also some content down at the bottom that helps people convert quickly. Sounds like full funnel. Or maybe you come to us and you say, all right, I do retirement plans for small business. I don't care about another keyword on the planet. If people Google retirement plan for small business, they need to be on my site. Great. Sounds like golden keyword. So again, it's thinking with the end in mind about all the different things that you want from SEO, how you want it to impact your business, and looking at a strategy, potentially with someone like us, say, okay, this is what you need to implement to get the right results.
All right. Always like to validate some of what we're talking about with some social proof. So maybe we close this out with any customer examples to share who went into their relationship with SEO with the right strategy and some of the results that they've seen.
Yeah, it's really good question. I think of a few and I'll go quick. We have one client, Mainstay Medical, who I think is a great example of a full funnel of really building authority from top to bottom. With people are looking for, I would almost say when people are searching for a pain that they can solve, but they don't even know who Mainstay is, they're going to end up on Mainstay's site because we built some very top of funnel authority. When they're considering the product that Mainstay sells, they're still going to end up on Mainstay's site because of the middle of funnel consideration. And then when they're ready to buy, they're still ending up on Mainstay's site. So I think it's cool for them. Any point of the buying process that people are considering Mainstay, they're ending up on Mainstay's site. And I think for me, if I kept Googling my pain points, my considerations, my terms when I'm ready to buy, and I keep ending up on the same site, they must be doing something pretty good. If their marketing's that good and they can follow me around the internet, I guarantee you their product's going to be that much better. So Mainstay's a good one. I think a Hello Nanny, Steph's been on the podcast. That is a competitor driven strategy. Nanny placement agencies are newer, but there's a lot that have been funded, right? And we can go on to the first page and see who's competing and who's in position 1, 2, and 3, figure out their strategy and what they've done and replicate it for Hello Nanny while putting our spin on it to be that much better. And then I think of somebody like Superior Attic, also on the podcast, Jonathan, localized services, right? He does not care about ranking for things in Denver because he's not here. But Dallas, Fort Worth, all of the surrounding areas like South Lake, he ranks very highly for, and that has driven an immense amount of revenue to the business just by being focused on the strategy. So, again, every business is a little bit different. Every path to success is a little bit different. But I'd ultimately say these are the 5 that we use most frequently, and also the 5 that I think sets us up for success more times than not with clients because we have such good experience with each of them. It's almost like a formula. We can take the structure, plug in specific client variables, make them unique, and take it to market and see the success that we saw with other clients.
Hopefully, you all learned something about the S, which is strategy and score. The next time David and I are talking about, we're going to hit the C, which is conversion, which is a very important topic. So excited to dig into that. David, looking forward to running down all of score. I think this will be fun.
It'll be a lot of fun. It's a good episode, and on to C.